Here's where we left off in our last video. We found that the monthly payment for our declining balance loan that gets the ending balance in period 24 as close to zero as possible is $446.66 per month. Now, once again, in period 24, that last payment, you're going to have to pay $446.78 in order to pay off that last 12 cents. But for this project, 446.66 is the monthly payment that we're looking for. Now what we need to do is to compute the APR for this declining balance loan. Once again, it's called a declining balance loan because look what's happening to the balance after each period. It's going down lower and lower and lower. Also, interestingly enough, look what's happening to the finance charges versus payment on principal. Now, the finance charges are going lower and lower and lower each month, and that is because the unpaid balance is going lower and lower and lower. But since the monthly payments are constant, the payment on principal portion of your monthly payments gets larger and larger and larger. So because the balance declines after each payment, it's called a declining balance loan. And what we saw is that with the declining balance loan, because the interest is applied to the unpaid balance, the APR is going to be equal to the quoted rate as long as there are no other fees. We want to compute the APR here, even though we know that it's going to be equal to the quoted rate, which of course was 8, because we want to confirm that for a declining balance loan, the APR is equal to the quoted rate. Now, let's take a look at our formula for computing APR. Here is the formula for computing the APR. The formula for computing the APR is the average annual finance charges divided by the average annual outstanding balance. The average annual finance charges divided by the average annual outstanding balance. So let's compute the average annual finance charges divided by the average annual outstanding balance. So how can we compute the average annual finance charges? Here are the finance charges. Here's the column for the finance charges right here. The finance charges. Now, these are monthly finance charges. Now, the average annual finance charge for year 1 would be the sum of these 12. That would be the average annual finance charge for year 1. The average annual finance charge for year 2 would be the sum of these figures right here. So the average annual finance charge would be the sum of that entire column divided by 2. So how are we going to get the sum of that entire column? Do we add each one individually? No, we can go up here to auto sum and highlight the column that we want added. Now look, Excel has already anticipated the column that we want to add, so it does it for us. How convenient. And so we will confirm that by clicking enter, and there we have it. Now we could do the same thing for the beginning balance, for the average outstanding balance here. The average outstanding balance would be the average of these 12 outstanding balances plus the average of these 12. So we would add up the average of that 12 plus the average of that 12 and divide it by 2. Well, as it turns out, this is going to be the sum of this column of figures divided by 24. Now we could go up here and do this again, or we can just simply copy this formula over to here, because this formula is saying take the average of the 24 cells directly above me. And when we copy that to here, that's what this cell is saying too. Take the average of the 24 cells directly above me. I mean the sum, not the average. I'm sorry, the sum of the 24 cells directly above me. Now, for the average annual finance charges, we would take this sum and divide it by 2, because these have already been divided by 12 because they're monthly figures. For the average annual outstanding balance, we would take this figure right here and divide that by 24. Now, if you're confused on this, or you would like some mathematical proof of it, I'd be happy to provide it. If you thought about it deeply enough, it's quite easy. For some reason, Excel has expressed this as a percentage. Let's go and format the cell and turn it into currency. Okay, there it is. So the APR, the annual percentage rate, is equal to the average annual finance charge divided by the average annual outstanding balance. So let's take this figure right here, average annual finance charge divided by the average annual outstanding balance. And there we have 0.08. Well, let's turn that into a percentage. We can just format the cell, turn it into a percentage, and there we have it. There, we have confirmed that indeed the annual percentage rate is equal to the quoted rate for the declining balance loan. But let's look at the add-on loan. We want to compute first the monthly payments for the add-on loan. Now, the way we compute the monthly payments for the add-on loan, we compute the interest charges, the finance charges, we add that to the principal that we are borrowing, and we divide the whole kit and caboodle by 24, the number of payments. So first of all, let's compute the finance charges. Add on finance charges. And for this, we simply use the simple interest formula, I, finance charges, equal to P times R times T. So this is going to be equal to the principal times the rate times the number of years. And there we have the finance charges for the add-on loan. And so the monthly payments are going to be equal to the principal. I'm going to need some parentheses here. The principal plus the finance charges divided by the number of payments, 24. So there would be the monthly payments, $477.34. Let's turn that into a, might as well, let's go ahead and turn that into a currency just for the heck of it. There we are. Now let's compute the APR for the add-on loan. As you can see, the monthly payments for the add-on loan are going to be $477.34, but for the declining balance loan, it was $446.66. So that's a dead giveaway that the APR for the add-on loan is going to be higher than the APR for the declining balance loan. Now let's take a peek here at the APR for the add-on loan. Now, keep in mind, this is just an estimate. There are such things as APR tables that will give you a more precise, down to the last decimal point, what the APR is, but this is good enough for our purposes here. This is an approximation of the APR. So that's 2 times little n times f, where little n is the number of payments in 1 year, which of course would be 12. F would be the finance charges over P times n plus 1, where P is the principal, the amount we borrowed, n is the total number of payments. What the heck happened there? N is the total number of payments. N is the total number of payments, which would be 24 plus 1, make that 25. All right, so let's get back then to our spreadsheet. All right, so we have the numerator. We want the numerator, and this would be 2 times n times f, where this is 2, notice I'm entering a formula here, times n would be number of payments in 1 year times 12 times f. There's the finance charges there. And here we will have P times n plus 1, where n, capital N, is the total number of payments, which is 24. So here we have our principal equals the principal times 24, oops, I'm going to put parentheses there, plus 1. Very important that you get these parentheses correct. Okay, so there we have, okay, so the APR then would be the ratio of the two, which would be then the numerator divided by the denominator. So let's turn that into a percentage. And just as we suspected, the APR is indeed greater than the quoted rate. The APR, 15.36%. Now, you got to be aware of this sort of stuff, because the used car salesman or whoever is going to use the add-on loan is going to tell you, oh, the interest rate we charge is 8%. But you can see here that the interest rate is charging is actually 15.36%. 8% is the interest rate, but the way they compute interest charges, you're going to wind up paying 15.36%. Now, once again, the Truth in Lending Act of 1969 requires that they hand you a sheet of paper and show you in writing what the APR will be. So they can't pull the wool over your eyes there. They've got to be upfront with this. Not everybody is going to be financially literate as you're going to be at the end of this semester. So they're not going to be aware of this. So that's why they have to make it it's the law that they have to make you aware of it. And in fact, the lender will probably hand you a piece of paper that you have to sign to confirm that indeed you have been notified of the actual APR. A lot of people just sign it, blow it off. All they see is that 8%. They don't see the 15.36%. So you have to be aware of how interest charges are computed. Okay, so if you have a question about how the the spreadsheet should be set up, or anything else, be sure to post a question or a comment on the discussions board, and I'll get right back to you. Okay?